Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
Listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Bartlett, you better bring everything you got, you big dummy, because the excellence of execution is gonna wipe you out.
Excellent. Joe Giammatteo.
I'm gonna use my girth to my advantage for this episode.
Well done, both of you. I am the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. But first, a quick shout out to Bob in New Jersey and David down in Georgia. Thanks, guys, for the positive feedback on our Royal Rumble episode. Always good to hear from our listeners. Get the feedback, constructive and otherwise, so we do appreciate that. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on January 29th, 1996. This Raw was recorded at the Stockton Civic Auditorium in Stockton, California, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, cue up that Raw band. Let's get it going.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Tonight, the first image we see is Shawn Michaels. He will be taking on Yokozuna. We'll also be getting an update on the attack on Gorilla Monsoon by Vader. Diesel will be taking on the British Bulldog. And despite the threat of legal action and the claims from Vince that this was done, we will be getting more of Billionaire Ted. Welcome everyone to Saturday Night Live. Oh, wait a second. Sorry. Monday Night Raw. I mean, I was thrown off by the G.E. Smith house band.
And the Billionaire Ted stuff.
Yeah. Started having flashbacks to the war room. It doesn't last long here, though, because we go immediately into our first match of the night. Diesel defeats the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, by pinfall in 6 minutes and 13 seconds. One of the two dudes with attitudes in action tonight, according to Vince, and I was surprised and upset to hear that name again. It does not bode well for the future, it seems. Man, the pyro display for Diesel, still at peak dangerousness. I'm surprised nobody in the Gold Circle seating had their Jerry curl ignited with this shit going off. It was pretty crazy. As the match gets going, Diesel takes the initiative, and the work was not looking too bad. The catch into the power slam looked rough. The Bulldog took it on the hip like an Ahmed Johnson spinebuster. The Bulldog was looking good here too. His moves were both tight and crisp, but also looking powerful. It was a really interesting counterpoint to Diesel. Diesel, you had the big monster kind of power, and the British Bulldog had this tight, small bursts of strength kind of power. It was really interesting to watch. Just as I was thinking that this is one of the better Diesel matches I've seen, Yokozuna comes out, and we are going to commercial. Just in case you were wondering, the word came to Vince while we were at commercial that Shawn Michaels is on his way to the arena, which I suppose is the bare minimum expected of Shawn since he's on the match card tonight. I liked the short and quick interference from Yoko the first time around, just quickly punching Diesel in the face while the ref's back was turned. This was a realistic and believable interference. This is the kind of thing I like here. I loved Diesel keeping with the selling of the leg as the Bulldog tried to whip Diesel to the corner. This is something that just made sense. Of course, somebody with a damaged knee won't be able to run smoothly and hit the opposing turnbuckle. Too often you see people forget that whenever they're in their matches, and it's usually not that big of a deal, but it was good to see somebody sticking to some authenticity here. I liked Diesel's reversal with the Bulldog onto the exposed turnbuckle, and I equally enjoyed Diesel dropping the Bulldog onto the exposed turnbuckle a second time. But just when things are looking good, once again, Yokozuna happens. This time he enters the ring in order to give Diesel a leg drop and save the Bulldog from a pin, but Diesel rolls out of the way. Yoko hits the Bulldog with the leg drop, and the ref doesn't notice 641 pounds of beef reverberating through the ring. But the ref does see Diesel capitalizing on the situation, rolling the Bulldog up to get the pin and the 3 count. As Diesel exits the ring, Cornette and Yoko check on the Bulldog, with Jim Cornette making gestures of blame at Yoko. I have to say, before the more egregious interference began, I was really up on this match. This is, in my opinion, one of the best Diesel matches I've seen. And then even after the interference, these hints that Yoko might be leaving Camp Cornette, or that there might be some kind of drama happening there, still pretty up on it. Joe, what did you think of our show opener?
I did not love the match, but I thought it was better than their In Your House match that they had a few months ago that we refer to as the leg match.
The knee match, yeah.
The knee match. This was, I mean, yeah, he's working on the leg again, but like you said, Bartlett, this one seems a little bit more acceptable, and Kevin Nash is doing a great job at selling that. And the match was a little bit boring at times, but like I said, I thought it was better than the other one that they had. I loved seeing Doc Hendricks dancing to Diesel's entrance music at the beginning with the Raw band. Doc Hendricks just cracks me up. Yokozuna coming out. This makes me wonder if, like, maybe this is one of the challenges of filming 4 Raw episodes in one shot. Because, you know, like you said, maybe they're building to Yoko leaving Camp Cornette, but this just makes no sense. This interference just doesn't really make any sense unless there's other pieces to it that we're going to see later, either in this episode or maybe next week or maybe the week after. So I don't really understand the interference other than they're trying to build towards Yoko leaving Camp Cornette, because Yokozuna has no business being out there, as they always say, you know. Yeah. There's nothing going on between him and Diesel, so it was just kind of confusing. One other thing I wanted to note was that the Bulldog actually had a lot of pretty good heat with this crowd for really no reason. So Bulldog as a heel is starting to slowly grow on me.
I'm in agreement with you two here in that this was way better than the In Your House knee match. And this included a lot of knee holds out of the Bulldog. The difference was this was, a 7-minute match, somewhere around there. And the knee holds were half of that. So you're talking maybe 3-4 minutes tops, where in the In Your House match, it was like 20 minutes of a 28-minute match or something. Like, it just was way too much. But here it worked. And the way it started was some of the best stuff I've seen out of Diesel. Both the knees that he was using and that hard clothesline after he whipped him out of the corner. He was looking good up until that, you mentioned that little sloppy power slam. But other than that, the work was pretty solid. And the knee holds actually made sense here. Yoko's stuff, you know, I could have done without the interruption. I understand, and I guess I'll be happy if he's going to leave Camp Cornette, because there needs to be a bit of a shakeup with that group at this point. But we're going to get a little bit of that later on, a little further explanation, I guess. The one thing I did want to point out, and I have to say this is something that came to my attention listening to a modern day Cornette podcast, and he was talking about Lex Luger. It played into tonight's episode when I was watching the British Bulldog come out. And have you noticed how much smaller he looks than he did like a year ago when he first came back? It was, you know, after the WWF started to enforce the no steroids after the trials. I mean, it's not like he's small. It's just a year ago, if you go back and look at a picture of him from a year ago when we were watching and look at him in this Diesel match, it's night and day. I mean, he doesn't look like just the absolute animal he looked like a year ago. So I think that's something interesting to see here that I wouldn't have paid attention to if it wasn't for Cornette pointing that out.
Yeah, good call with that. I have to admit, you know, I did not notice that at all, but I'm going to start paying attention to it here in the future. That's a very interesting thing. I wonder how many other guys are similarly affected. I mean, nobody that we've picked up on so far, but...
And that's kind of what he was talking about. He was like, with Lex Luger, it was, you clear he was the narcissist.
Yeah.
If you look at him then and look at him right before he left the WWF, he just does not look like the narcissist at all.
Well, we will keep that in mind in future. Next up, Doc's Cocaine Jam. My goodness. Doc is ready to go. I realized this whole time it's been like tickling at the back of my brain. And tonight, this episode really slammed it home. He reminds me of Alfred Molina's character in Boogie Nights. He's got the mustache. There's even a fucking keyboard there on the table next to like the red telephone. He's gesturing with like a fist pump and slinking and sleazing around the set. Like I expect him to start like playing air drums to Sister Christian,
He's just running on Hitman power, dummy.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, he does then kick it off with, despite the threat of legal action, and I immediately gave up on the potential for this. But we do get some semi-useful information here. In Your House 6 is coming up soon, with the championship cage match between Bret Hart and Diesel already announced. I might be wrong, but I think this is the first time they've clearly stated that this will be the pay-per-view main event. I've been under the impression that this Bret Hart Diesel cage match was going to be a Raw match that then got bumped back, because I thought we were going to have that match like last week or this week. Then it kept on getting bumped, and now we get the word that it's on the pay-per-view. Am I misremembering anything here, or is this the first time we heard that that's the main event?
Yeah, I don't think we were ever given any type of verification when it was going to take place, is that I could remember.
Yeah, I don't recall like them saying exactly when it was going to be.
Okay. Well, we will get a promo from Bret Hart, and this was a great Bret Hart promo. Bring everything you got, you big dummy. My favorite quote. Ryan hit it earlier. This is where we also find out that the Shawn Michaels Owen Hart match for the WrestleMania title shot will be at In Your House 6. I am looking forward to that. But then the bomb gets dropped. Guess what, everybody? We're going to have our first ever crybaby match. This will be between Razor Ramon and the 1-2-3 Kid. The loser will be fed a baby bottle in a diaper. And Doc gives us one of the worst things he's ever said. Could you see the bad guy with a baby bottle in his mouth in a diaper? Whoa! Yes, I'm picturing it right now, and it doesn't fucking look good. Also, just added Duke the Dumpster Droese versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Who did Hunter piss off, is what I'd like to know. Apparently, Hunter ambushed the dumpster and then cut the dumpster's hair off, prompting one of the most unfortunate feuds I've ever heard of. We'll see how well that turns out. What the fuck?
It seems like they're just trying to continue with the social war, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the dirty people versus the clean people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But now, back to the billionaire Ted business. Doc tells us that the WWF got a phone call from Turner Legal, and then a courier letter that they show on air from one Eric Bischoff. I won't read it word for word, but if you pause the cock and check this out, you can clearly read all of it. The letter shows that apparently the WWF had already reached out to Ted Turner first. Then lawyers got involved. The WWF sent another letter that WCW responded to by saying that it didn't deserve a response. They say that Billionaire Ted is mildly amusing but also defamatory, that WCW has a substance abuse policy, and most interesting of all, the WWF apparently was interested in combining their efforts with those of WCW on some kind of something. There's no detail as to what exactly, but this is the direct quote. While we can appreciate your interest in combining the efforts of the WWF with certain facets of our program, we are not so inclined. End quote. Doc then asserts that this is America, goddammit, and that this is now about freedom. And besides, the fans have apparently asked for more Billionaire Ted, and now it's our fault. The past 4 months, we've been gaslighted so bad. I mean, we did this to Shawn Michaels. We are bringing about Billionaire Ted. What the fuck? So here he is, Billionaire Ted. This is going to be Billionaire Ted, the Huckster, the Nacho Man, and then a couple various others at a press conference. And this is just reporters asking gotcha questions that Billionaire Ted refuses to answer. And in what is a truly shocking turn of events, however, the Huckster says that it's in his contract with Billionaire Ted that he, the Huckster, never has to lose. This was breaking kayfabe to a degree that we haven't seen before so far on Raw, and I look forward to being corrected if that's the case, but unfortunately this ends with a to be continued graphic on the screen implying that there's going to be more. So, Joe, I could not wait to hear your thoughts on the contents of Doc's Cocaine Jam this week.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here, right?
There is.
I'll go in order here the best I can. The Bret Hart promo, I loved it. I thought it was a great babyface promo by Bret. And I feel like Bret is becoming, this is what, his third run as champion?
Yes.
I think he seems to be getting more comfortable each time. So for some reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because we were stuck with Diesel as champion for a year, but just seeing the belt on Bret Hart's shoulder is just so refreshing. It's still great to see the belt on Bret Hart, and this was a great promo, so I enjoyed that.
It seems much more fitting around his waist.
Yeah. Fucking crybaby match. I cannot believe they're doing this.
Oh, I can.
It's not a joke. It's real. It's going to happen. And it's between two pretty good wrestlers. You know, it's not like we're talking about fucking Duke the Dumpster versus Marty Jannetty. And speaking of Duke the Dumpster, what the fuck? This is like they're reviving Duke the Dumpster here. Why? I don't know why. Pretty strange, you know? Usually when they have this lose your hair stuff, it's usually because they want to like repackage you or, you know, do something like that, but
he's still a fucking garbage man, though.
Yeah. The letter from Eric Bischoff, I couldn't believe that either. I couldn't believe that was on TV. And, you know, this is the WWF right now is just playing victim. They're going to be doing that for a while here. And this is just pathetic, I think. Billionaire Ted asking Jane Fonda, "Where's my lithium?" at the end. What the hell? This was like it's like a press conference this time, right? It's not in the Wrasslin War Room. So it reminded me of a cold open on SNL, but just really bad.
Doc's Cocaine Jam back here. He starts off dancing in the background, just like he just got finished laying down a rail. And then we get into the Hitman's promo, and one of the best we've seen out of him. I mean, you said it, Bartlett, and obviously mine. I used it at the beginning, the "bring everything you got, you big dummy." Just such a great line out of him. And the whole promo together, the whole promo was great. And then we learn about the baby shit and how it's going to continue. How you, Joe, said you have two great wrestlers here, and then you're just going to destroy them with this ridiculous gimmick. It can't be good. It can't be. Duke the Dumpster. Talk about pulling someone out of the garbage. We haven't seen him except for, the Royal Rumble? We saw him in that, but before that, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, he's with Hunter. I don't know. Maybe Hunter will do something with him that will be okay, but... And then we get the letter from Bischoff, which was interesting, and then right into the Billionaire Ted. That was just sad and pathetic. The last, 3 questions were somehow shoehorned into it not being fair that Monday Night Nitro is at the same time as Raw. It's not fair. I mean, come on.
Snarf.
Jeez.
And it's all our fault.
Yeah.
Yes. We asked for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I had kind of forgotten about it. I didn't want to get too in the weeds with Billionaire Ted, but I do believe the one question was, Mr. Turner, you own an entire cable network. Isn't it true that you could have put Nitro on any other night, but you chose to put it on Monday nights at 9?
Wah.
Talk about Crybaby.
Yeah.
Crybaby match between Vince and Ted Turner.
So I wanted to ask you guys about that specifically. What self-respecting professional... Like, I'm trying to think, like, at first my initial thought was, okay, this sounds like maybe some kind of, like, gimmicky, hokey territory shit. This is something that
But who's going to put on a diaper?
Exactly.
I really wonder, like, when Scott Hall started talking to Eric Bischoff, because he's coming out of this Goldust thing that he hated. Now he's going into a Crybaby thing. Like, dude, this is Razor Ramon we're talking about.
Oozing machismo.
Yeah.
He had to be on the phone with Bischoff.
And that's what made me wonder, because even though, Scott Hall is a territory guy, but it would have to be, it's so out of character and out of what bad guy would allow himself, if he loses, and, it's possible there might be some kind of heel interference that goes on.
Shenanigans.
There might be shenanigans. What kind of bad guy would allow himself to be diapered and bottle-fed?
Right. Well, and I get your point, too, with that, because we had stupid shit with Jerry Lawler with the toe stuff.
Right.
But Jerry Lawler's a goofball, so it kind of makes sense a little bit more than this.
Yeah, at no point have we ever not been taking these two guys seriously.
Right.
Even though they've done some stupid things occasionally, but, they're not a Jerry Lawler. That's an excellent point.
Just flashbacks to 1995.
Yeah.
With shit like this.
Well, we left Billionaire Ted for a commercial break, and we came back to our next match. The Godwinns, Henry O. and Phineas I, with Hillbilly Jim, defeat the Bodydonnas, that's Skip and Zip, with Sunny by pinfall in 2 minutes and 16 seconds. The Bodydonnas are already in the ring, so when the banjo music starts, it's Henry Godwinn and Hillbilly Jim that come out, and then they pull a bashful-looking fellow out from behind the entry point. And he gets over his bashfulness quickly, though, and enthusiastically joins them in approaching the ring. We didn't know until recently that old Hank had a family member. This is Cousin Phineas. I always thought they were brothers, but oh well, it really doesn't matter. And this is a cartoony turn to things, but man, I loved the Godwinns as a kid. They were one of my favorite tag teams. It was a strong nostalgia hit for me with this. In the match, I loved Skip's hat head.
I was going to say, I have in my notes, it looks like he'd been wearing a hat for 30 years and just took it off.
It was clear that Skip showed up tonight wearing a baseball cap. Once the action started, I was amazed that Skip was able to effortlessly leapfrog over Henry Godwinn. He was able to clear that big mammoth. The work here was pretty good overall. It was mostly dominated by the Bodydonnas doing some double teaming, and then Sunny unsuccessfully trying to flirt with Hillbilly Jim. But this was more or less a 2-minute match, and so Phineas ended it with a slop drop to get the pin and the 3 count. The Godwinns toss the Bodydonnas out of the ring, while Sunny climbs in for some reason. Sunny is then surprised to find out that she's in the ring with the Godwinns. And then a hoedown starts, both literally and figuratively, to celebrate the victory as she gets passed between the Godwinns. The Godwinns go into this square dancing sequence. I'm not sure what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about. She promptly escapes. Do-si-do, that's right. She promptly escapes after a few turns. Ryan, what did you think of the debut of the newest Godwinn, Phineas?
I thought this was a pretty decent debut for a new tag team partner, and Godwinn kind of needed something new after his feud with Hunter, and I think this is a good turn. You kind of have a stable here now. You got Hillbilly Jim as a manager, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And And I thought that the Bodydonnas did a much better job as a tag team than the last time we saw them. They were kind of still working things out together, it looked like. And here, they were pulling off these double team maneuvers with each other that were looking pretty good. But then Phineas just nails the slop drop and it's over really quick. And it further hammers home my point that the Bodydonnas are just a jobber factory now, though. I was very close to doing the Bodydonnas as my jobber of the week because, I'm feeling an itch. We haven't had a jobber of the week in some time now, so I felt like I needed to do one, but maybe I'll hold back a couple more weeks. Maybe they'll turn things around. But the way things ended after it was, I thought, pretty entertaining. The Godwinns just coming in there, doing their do-si-doing with Sonny, and it was an entertaining, fairly short and uneventful match, but I thought it got its point across in just being a comedy, entertaining spot of the evening.
Yeah, I agree with you guys with the Bodydonnas. They certainly look much better as a team right now than they did in the previous time that we saw them. It's still a stupid gimmick, but Tom Pritchard and Chris Candido definitely make a good team, and they're probably only going to get better. So that'll be cool to see. The Godwinns, for me, I'm not real sure how I feel about it. It sort of went from a little bit hokey with this pig farmer to full-blown, completely hokey, like bushwhackers stuff.
I was going to say, they're like modern-day bushwhackers for sure.
Yeah, which, look, it's professional wrestling. It's nothing too offensive to fans. It's just hokey, goofy shit. And really, speaking of the kids, the crowd was totally dead for this whole entire thing until Hillbilly Jim tried to slop Sonny with the bucket. Then they started to yell and scream. So I don't know. Some of it works, I guess, to entertain the crowd. But to me, it's just like, it's a little too hokey because I think that Henry Godwinn was doing fine by himself. But this is it. We're at the Godwinns. They're going to be doing this for a while.
And I do wonder if maybe the crowd was just cheering, because it involves Sonny. At this point, I think they cheer anything that Sonny is doing.
Yeah, horrible. I didn't like Sonny as much in this. I think it was just really bad acting and just kind of stupid.
Yeah, that whole thing with her ending up in the ring was just dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this was an interesting case study for me because I mentioned in my breakdown it's a little cartoony, and we spent a good amount of time railing against cartoony things in the WWF. But it seems like this is the kind of thing, for me personally at least, I'm not trying to put this on anybody else, but this is up to but not crossing the line. So like something like a crybaby match, that is crossing the line.
That's offensive. Yeah, that's insulting to fans.
That's being a habitual line stepper.
Right.
This, on the other hand, I can certainly see how the gimmick may potentially get on my nerves in the future, but I think the potential that they have here to liven up the tag team division, as you both pointed out, we're all on the same page as far as the Bodydonnas go, much better looking this time around. And they're coming off of a tag team championship title match with the Smoking Guns, so it seems like we're getting closer to having a somewhat fleshed out tag team division that isn't just a bunch of singles. So I'll take that silver lining, I guess.
Yeah, the goofy shit with the Godwinns is like, it's one of those things that it's goofy, but it has a chance to get over, so you might as well try it. It's kind of like, the Bushwhackers were the same way. This is the Godwinns, and then like in later years, you had Too Cole that was doing goofy shit that got over. So yeah, it makes sense.
All right. Up next, a petting zoo voiceover. Whap, whap. Bret Hart and The Undertaker had a match, but The Undertaker was robbed. So now the Hitman is giving The Undertaker a rematch next week on Monday Night Raw. Let's take a look now at the Vader situation. Between Vader's extreme debut at the Royal Rumble and his behavior during and after the Raw match with Savio Vega, Gorilla Monsoon got involved, and Vader decided that it was time to take Monsoon out. We have attorney Clarence Mason here with Jim Cornette. and Clarence is here to provide a legal argument against the suspension of Vader that resulted in his, we'll say, aggressive behavior there. The argument is basically that everybody knows Vader is a monster, and Monsoon shouldn't have touched him. Simple. Mason will pursue criminal and civil charges unless the suspension is lifted immediately, and Cornette just loves this. It's been weird seeing Cornette have so many quiet moments here, but still equally entertaining. He's just as entertaining standing here cheesing it up next to Clarence Mason as he was getting tossed around by Vader. We then cut to Doc Hendricks having a freak out with the G.E. Smith band. So he must have got a hotline or something. I don't know, but
another rail.
Yeah, it looked like he did a Scarface amount of cocaine.
I mean, his eyes are rolling back into
yeah, twirling his head.
Doc, you didn't tell me you'd like to get wet, baby. If you want to send get well wishes to Gorilla Monsoon, there is a P.O. box provided here so that we can all send in our valuable data. After a commercial break, we're going to be introduced to the man that Gorilla Monsoon personally chose to be the acting president of the WWF while Gorilla is rehabbing it. And that man is the rowdy one, Rowdy Roddy Piper. Piper reminds us that he's the one who took a coconut and smeared a guy who's never been the same. Such a fantastic line. I'm hit or miss with Piper's promos, but that line was fucking perfect. He's also the one who apparently took on 10 of New York's finest, and by my personal math, that makes him more of a man than Shawn Michaels. Piper has thoughts on the men he's going to govern as interim president. That is not a mistake. He is the interim for the interim. Piper basically states that he's going to straighten things out, and then things go off the rails as Piper says no government shutdowns. Newt Gingrich didn't have kids. I don't know what any of this was about. I mean, I know what he was referencing, but I don't know why he felt the need to bring it up here. Piper says that he loves the fans and that the fans are in good hands. But as far as the superstars go, everybody has to pay the piper. Love that line. Including McMahon. As Piper picks up Vince McMahon up into like a helicopter spin, not once but twice. After another commercial break, we come back to something that had me popping my ass off. It's a view of a mangled, missing ear, a tense background music track, and a man asking why he is the way he is and why people are so frightened of him. He doesn't know the answers to this, but we should all have a nice day. Lawler mentions shortly after that he thinks this person's name is Mankind. So, Ryan, please get us going on the Vader situation, a Piper presidency, and this mysterious and disturbing vignette.
Starting with Vader, we get a little rundown of what he did, but that's not important. The important thing is Clarence Mason here. Another just fantastic job from him for being the civilian that he is. It's impressive. It is. For a guy who isn't involved in wrestling to come in and cut a promo like that, I'd hire him as my lawyer. Then the Doc thing, like you said, the eyes rolling back and the shaking head, it just so many points tonight. It looked like we're seeing Doc the moment after he got done snorting down the giant line. That just like 3 or 4 times tonight, but this might have been the worst. Then the get well wishes for Gorilla, I thought was kind of funny. That led into us learning that Rowdy Roddy Piper is the interim president. I was glad to hear that. He cut a pretty great promo here. Bartlett, you stated, and it is true, Piper's promos can be hit or miss. This was a hit. He did a great job. He even kind of broke kayfabe for a moment, teasing McMahon that he was going to be his boss. You know, asking him, does that mean I'm going to be your boss? but nothing in any of this compares to meeting Mankind. I wasn't expecting it. I knew it was coming soon, but I didn't know when. And the first look that we got of his ear, like you, popping my ass off. I don't think we've seen or at least heard acting like this in a promo. Maybe Waylon Mercy would come the closest, but this is way better than even that. He looked and sounded like a tormented man. This, I can't wait. Very exciting.
Really good production on it.
Yeah.
So Bret Hart versus The Undertaker next week on Raw. What the hell is that? You talked about not knowing the Diesel Bret Hart match was. I didn't know this was happening.
No.
Yeah.
On Raw. So I mean, of course, we'll probably get some bullshit from Diesel, but still, that's pretty great. That's something to look forward to.
For sure.
The Vader stuff with Clarence Mason. I mean, I like Clarence Mason. I like Jim Cornette, but I thought this was a little bit lazy. A little bit with just, what was it again, Bartlett? They said, what was the defense that Vader
everybody knows Vader is a monster, so Monsoon shouldn't have touched him.
I mean, they can come up with something more creative than that, right? And we talked about Doc Hendricks and his love of cocaine already. You know, Roddy Piper, I was pleasantly surprised by this because I didn't remember this. I didn't remember that he was going to be the guy to step in. And to be honest, I got a little sentimental during this. I was like, man, I'd love to see like a fucking Broken Skull sessions with Roddy Piper, you know, or like something like that. I was like, obviously I didn't know the guy, but I miss him, you know? I wish he was still around doing shoot interviews and stuff. What an awesome interview. I loved it with Vince. And you could tell Vince was having so much fun, like especially with the helicopter spinning. Like it just seemed so genuine, the whole thing. I loved it. And speaking of genuine, Mankind. I mean, this just came out of nowhere, right? We didn't.
Yeah.
It's just boom, there it is. And we are going to very soon see a legend, absolute legend, come into the WWF. And I can't wait.
Yeah, agreed on all points. This was... It's weird because there are so many things in this that are kind of fucking awesome, but for so many different reasons. You know, the Mankind thing, awesome for its own, in its own way, in its own perfect way. But then also Doc Hendricks geeking out with the G.E. Smith band was kind of fucking perfect too. You know, this was a very entertaining little segment. Roddy Piper was very entertaining here. This was some good stuff going on.
Not to mention with Piper, you know, I'm expecting him to be a little bit more involved, like we'll get in a few years, like when Stone Cold was the president.
Yeah, be a little more physical.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're going to get that great match at WrestleMania with him and Goldust, that street fight.
Yeah.
This is probably the build up to that, I would guess, but there might be some other stuff too.
I can't wait.
I wanted to ask you guys about Mick Foley. So the ear, I know the ear happened with like the ropes ripped off his ear, correct?
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
His head was stuck between, he did the, where he wraps his head up in the ropes.
So was that ECW?
No, he was in Germany.
Okay.
Doing a show with Vader.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was WCW.
All right. For some reason, I thought he did that in the WWF, but I was wrong.
Well, we will come out of that last segment and straight into our final match of the night. Shawn Michaels defeats Yokozuna with Jim Cornette by pinfall in 7 minutes and 51 seconds. Yoko's out first, and then has to stand around waiting while Shawn Michaels gives everyone a strip show. It really reminded me of my early comments on the Smoking Guns, how they would come out in the full Kmart cowboy regalia and have to spend like 10 minutes taking it all off. Shawn Michaels doesn't come out wearing a ton of stuff like they did, but it still takes about 10 minutes for him, or it feels like it takes about 10 minutes because he's doing the ass shaking and the crotch thrusting and all of the things that Vince likes to see. Did you guys see the ring rat with the 5-head cheering for Shawn?
No.
Yeah, it looked like her nipples were about to fall out of her shirt.
Jeez.
As the match gets going, the tie-ups look good as Yoko starts throwing his weight around, and it's no surprise that Michaels does a great job of selling and making Yoko look like a monster. I have to admit that I loved it when Shawn Michaels reversed Yoko, but rather than going into a move, he slapped Yoko on the ass a few times, and my lord did it jiggle. But it's like deja vu all over again. Just when I thought I was going to be seeing a great match, another person comes down to the ring. This time it's Owen Hart, and this does have me wondering what's going to happen next, and whether or not I'm going to like it. I was honestly up in the air with it at this point because, Shawn and Owen have that little program going, and it makes some kind of sense for Owen to be there because I guess he's still technically Yoko's tag team partner. Yoko gets a breather on the outside as he confers with Cornette and Owen, while Shawn does a lap around the outside, giving high fives to fans. The breather ends just as we're going to commercial break, and we come back to the action in progress. The moonsault on Yoko by Michaels looked great, as did the roll-up to get a 2 count. It just doesn't feel like you get a roll-up pin on Yokozuna very often. You're hoisting a 200-pound ham hock just on the thigh alone there. And my God, Michaels selling that whip to the corner. We've said it before here on Wrasslin Raw, but it is no mystery why Shawn Michaels needed pain medication. Cornette distracting the ref allowed Owen to put some kicks on Michaels, which in turn gave Vince an opportunity to gush about the most resilient, the most unyielding superstar. After that interference, there's an extremely delayed and belabored ring count that gets restarted a couple times while Shawn sells injury and fatigue at the outside, while Yoko is genuinely fatigued in the ring. This is highlighted even more when Michaels gets back in the ring. Yoko puts a great-looking snap-near takedown on Shawn, but then here comes the Vulcan nerve pinch. We even got the double as Yoko attempted to ratchet it down on Michaels, but Michaels rallies out only to take a clothesline reversal that looked great. We cut to commercial and come back to see Michaels reversing a leg drop from Yoko and attempting to rally again. With Yoko still on the mat, Michaels goes up top for a splash but gets reversed as Yoko rolls out of the way. But when both competitors are back on their feet, Yoko does a great job of selling Shawn's rally. Of course, there's a call for interference to set up the finish. Owen comes in the ring while Yoko is holding Shawn. There's an attempt at the enziguri, but Shawn dodges out of it. Owen hits Yoko, staggers Yoko, which gives Shawn the opening to get Yoko with the sweet chin music, getting the pin and the victory. By the way, Yoko sold the sweet chin music pretty well for a big man. As Shawn is starting to celebrate, Yoko and Owen start to have an issue in the ring. The British Bulldog comes out to try to mediate with Cornette. Shawn hasn't left the ring, though, and as Camp Cornette turns and begins to advance on Shawn, friendship is here to save the day as Diesel runs in to stand with Shawn. Vince tries to get a word in with Cornette, who insists that there is no dissension in Cornette's stable. Cornette cuts a great promo calling Shawn and Diesel the Glimmer Twins, and then challenges Shawn and Diesel to a match against Yoko and the British Bulldog next week on Raw. The two dudes with attitudes make the Razor Ramon "Oh, I'm scared" gesture, which apparently means that they accept the challenge, and we fade to black. Joe, please get us started on our final match and the way that Raw ended tonight.
Well, I thought the match itself was really great. And I think the beginning, there was a lot of great psychology, like every other Shawn Michaels match, and working the crowd pretty well at the beginning. We cannot expect a Yokozuna match to be fast-paced the entire time. It's just not humanly possible. So he's 700 pounds, so when Owen comes out, things slowed down. So it made sense. We got the Vulcan nerve pinches and stuff like that, slowing things down. But when it was fast, it was fast. And that's pretty impressive for Yokozuna. The beginning third of the match and then that last third of the match was pretty fast paced. I thought they worked extremely well together. Talk about two different styles. I mean, you'd think this would clash, but it did not. I thought it was great. And then Diesel comes out and ruins the whole thing, really. And if this is about Yokozuna, his issues with Camp Cornette, just leave it at that. Like, why do you have to bring Diesel out here? Diesel is, and I love Kevin Nash. I love what he did with everything that he did with the NWO and everything like that. But Diesel is so annoying right now, And That's probably why it's so easy for Bret Hart to cut these good babyface promos, because Diesel actually is really annoying. Like, the character of Diesel is annoying as hell. So I guess it's easy to cut a promo on, but it's just annoying. This Shawn Michaels and Diesel friendship thing is just, I'm over it.
Complete agreement with you two. This, as we kind of expected from, we said last week, we wouldn't be shocked if this turned out to be a good match between Yoko and Shawn Michaels, and they didn't disappoint. And it started from the very beginning. Even before the match started, I thought this was a great way to get the crowd involved. Michaels pointing to Yoko and getting them to boo, and then he points to himself and they cheer. And the way that he would point to Yoko's face when the crowd started to cheer, he just looked like someone killed his puppy or something. It was a great face out of Yoko. And then when it started, excellent work from both of these guys. We get that first shoulder out of Yoko, and Michaels just sells it like a champ, the way he hits the ground, and they were really just working with each other great. And then when Yoko needed his break, we have Owen come down to the ring, so we kind of divert our attention for a little bit. And then we go to commercial break, we get a Vulcan nerve pinch. But then we get into the back half of the match, and just like the beginning, we crank it back up to 11. As Michaels tries to set up this gargantuan, he keeps on nailing him with those right hands, and then finally hits him with the flying punch to finally put the big man down. And the way that Yoko then reversed and slammed Michaels into the turnbuckle after he tried to go up to the top rope to capitalize on it. I thought just bell to bell, this was the best stuff that you can expect out of Yokozuna. I really enjoyed it. And then we have the distraction at the end, which was fine. I mean, you're going to have that when you're up against a heel team like this, especially when he has his tag team partner down there. And, Michaels picks up the win after capitalizing after Owen accidentally hits Yoko. So not a bad ending either, but Diesel coming out was the low light of the match for sure, but I guess to me, I could forgive it in that if they're supposed to be friends, what better time to come out when four guys are about to beat the shit out of you? So it was appropriate for him to come out here. I'm just sick of Diesel, like you said, so I don't want to see him come out, but I guess it fits here.
Yeah, I was so pleasantly surprised at how good this was. Like, I didn't go into it thinking that this was going to be horrible by any means, but just really, really happy with the way that this match turned out. Yoko, like we've all said here, Yoko did a fantastic job of moving quickly when he had to. Pacing of the match was perfect. And yeah, just all around. It really makes me wonder how up on Shawn Michaels I would be if this is the only information I had to go on. If it was just promos here and there and matches like this, I would probably be the world's biggest Shawn Michaels fan. But the push and the way he's just, everything else is just too strong and taints him a little bit for me. Gives him a little bit of a bad taste. But man, this was a fantastic match. I'm glad we were able to get this. And it seems like it's going to make sense moving into that whole thing that they've got going with Camp Cornette and Yoko. Obviously, we can't have Owen in there in a tag match because Owen's going to be facing Shawn, but the British Bulldog's there, and they've already had a little bit of a disagreement, we'll say, today.
And that is kind of what I've been saying for a long time, or at least the last couple month or two about Shawn Michaels, is that when it's just him actually doing what he does best, it's great. What makes you hate him is what Vince McMahon keeps on throwing on top of it to just shove him down our throats. He's great on his own. He doesn't need it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't mean to make this a direct comparison, but it's, and we've mentioned it before, it's like the Lex Express. I was never a huge fan of Lex Luger's WCW work, but you know what? His WCW work is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my cup of tea. If he had been allowed to be the normal Lex Luger, then who knows? We might have had good matches out of him. but we had the push, and here we have the push, and, you know.
I think there's a slight difference there in that we saw some stuff out of Luger, and no, he couldn't do it in the ring. Nowhere close to Shawn Michaels. So I'm just saying where I think Lex Luger maybe needed a push to get him over. Shawn Michaels does not.
Okay, yeah, that's a distinction I could probably live with.
Yeah, and Luger was handicapped by getting a new gimmick that just didn't make any sense. And it was clearly Vince's idea, where Shawn is doing his thing. It's just Vince is just... This almost makes me think like Vince is maybe a little insecure about Shawn Michaels being able to carry the company, and we find out that he was not capable of doing it. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense, I guess. So maybe Vince is just gushing too much because of insecurity.
But the reasons why Shawn Michaels wasn't able to live up to it, was it maybe because of all this buildup? I mean, if you just allow him to naturally, do what he does, I don't know. It's just...
Yeah, when somebody is not mentally strong enough to carry the company, then doing this is just going to make it worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as I said, that was the end of Raw, so we're going to take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, why don't you take it first?
So my highlight, I thought this was another really strong episode of Raw, but my highlight is going to be an extremely brief part of this Raw, and it was really just a teaser video for Mankind. I know, this is hindsight and knowledge of the present day of what the superstar Mankind is going to become, but I don't care. I got more excited during these 20 seconds than I think I have during any point that we've covered in this podcast so far. So just hearing his voice and seeing that ear sent chills down my spine. So it had to be the highlight. And low light, there weren't many. Again, because this was a very strong episode of Raw. Almost every match was good. And my low light isn't going to be a match. It was the billionaire Ted bullshit whatever you want to call it. It was absolute garbage. It was sad and pathetic. The definite standout low light tonight to me.
We're going to share lowlights, I guess. I don't know what else to pick. Like you said, it was a great episode. Maybe a lowlight for me would be that we did not get Sonny on a pool table to start the show in lingerie. But yeah, I'd go with the billionaire Ted as my lowlight. For a highlight, I mean, there's a lot to choose from. Mankind vignette, Yokozuna versus Shawn Michaels match. I'm going to go with the return of Roddy Piper. It was unexpected, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, so mine are going to mirror Ryan's here. My highlight, Mankind, absolutely. There was never going to be any question about that. My lowlight is going to be the ongoing shit with Billionaire Ted, but specifically, my lowlight is them putting that letter on the air. It was probably one of the stupidest fucking things that they've done in a very long time, because anybody that had a recording of this, like, if it was live on live TV or watching it, you might not have gotten a chance to read it. But anybody that has it on a recorded format that was able to pause could have stopped and read it. And this is not something that the WWF should be proud of. This is not, it highlights things that they've done that just make them look like hypocritical pussies, almost.
It's not fair.
The whole thing is bad, but that was especially stupid. So, all right. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around January 29th, 1996 for us?
Yes, I do. From the Wrestling Observer, Cactus Jack, otherwise known as Mick Foley and several other names. Do you guys remember what his name was going to be when he came to WWF?
Oh, shit. It had to do with serial killers, didn't it?
The Mutilator.
The Mutilator. Oh, there it is.
That is
I was wrong.
What Vince wanted to give him, and that is what Dave Meltzer reported here. I thought that was interesting. So he must have talked to Mick Foley directly or someone very close to Mick Foley.
And I believe it was Foley who then said, what about Mankind?
Right. Tatanka is telling people that he is only in for 3 more months and then he will quit wrestling to get involved in another business with friends. I have no idea what that is. Davey Boy Smith has an assault trial that will begin this week, so we need to keep an eye on that. Bam Bam Bigelow missed the Royal Rumble. I'm sure you guys remember that. He was advertised and missed it because he had major surgery on his elbow. So nice to know that that was just injury related and not something terrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's terrible, but could be worse. knowing the business of professional wrestling.
That is true.
It could be worse. It is expected that Jim Cornette will be moving to Connecticut within a month and become a full-time member of the booking committee. So he is still not a full-time member of the booking committee, but that will happen soon. The Monday Night Wars are heating up. As you mentioned, Bartlett, legal letters are going back and forth. WWF is showing one on TV, and they are apparently upset with WCW's disparaging remarks on Nitro. Apparently, there is also some heat with Lex Luger and Medusa for obvious reasons. And the WWF is also upset over copyright reasons. I don't know if you did, when you paused the cock and read that, did you notice anything about copyright infringement?
There was not, no.
Okay. Specifically, the Renegade character for WCW. It is a direct ripoff of the Ultimate Warrior, and the WWF, I guess, is taking legal action over that as well.
It's not fair.
Not fair. And that is all this week.
Thank you, Joseph. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW and just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on February 5th, 1996, with matches featuring Bret the Hitman Hart, Hakushi, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.